represents the least specialized audience in the world. As we all know, there is nothing special about being an American, and there is a constant temptation, almost always succumbed to level everything down to the lowest common denominator. In such conditions, there is little chance that an individual filmmaker will produce a personal work. Almost always an American film is edited not by the director but by the studio, often in committee. It is not difficult to understand why, when several $1 million are at stake, a responsible business will rarely rely on the opinion of one man. Other opinions, often outside opinions, will be sought, and each time such an opinion is applied to a film, it becomes, to that extent, less and less the director's personal statement. The Screen Directors Guild in Hollywood in recent years has added a clause to its standard contract requiring a producer to grant the director right of first cut, but this is often no more than a formality. There was a recent case in which the director's version of a film was seen only by him and his editor before it was taken apart again to be run uncut for the producers. And with the current trend to larger budgets based on the hypothesis that a larger investment is less risky than a smaller one, it is likely that less and less control will be left in the hands of a director, unless he is by age or experience, or perhaps by financial participation, powerful enough to have a controlling interest. This is all very discouraging for the young filmmaker trying to bore his way into films through the porthole eye of television, or to make the long hard jump from shorts or the repertory theater into features. And for many European directors, this is reason enough for not working in Hollywood. Their financing problems are usually solved film by film whenever they persuade a backer to support their latest speculation, frequently for a budget which would have been consumed by one elephant charge in a film by the late Cecil B. DeMille. The freedom to make the films of their own choosing in their own way is not even the goal of most Hollywood directors, who seem quite content to be parts of a large, organic whole. It is only a small, hardcore minority which chases these freedoms, each in his own way, perhaps known to each other, but not united by anything more than interest. Some of them play poker together, but they solve their problems in different ways, some choosing to remain independent of a major studio entirely, like Stanley Kubrick, others already in possession of a more or less safe Hollywood studio contract, but waiting for their chance to be free of studio control. Others, again, not yet so far advanced, are serving a hopeful, waiting apprenticeship in the theater or in live television, or have started by making some shorts, usually documentary, but occasionally dramatic. In each case, the mechanical problems are different. There is no single happy road to independence. But in each case, the goal is the same: freedom to make a personal film, as free as possible from compromise. The fear that they will fail is a real one. It is responsible yearly for no one knows how many defections, and the thought that when they earn their freedom, they will have lost the will to use it as a constant threat. Stanley Kubrick is perhaps the most widely discussed of the post-war Hollywood newcomers. With 4 independent features behind him, Fear and Desire, Killer's Kiss, The Killing, and Paths of Glory, he recently withdrew from the unit about to start shooting One-Eyed Jacks, Marlon Brando's independent production, ostensibly to begin work on Lolita, with his producer since The Killing, James Harris. They bought the film rights about a month after the novel appeared, and since then have had several bids from other producers, the highest for $650,000. This offer, like the others, was refused. All this gives an impression of typically inflated Hollywood economics, but it is curiously untypical of the manner in which Kubrick and Harris work. Paths of Glory was made for $900,000 to $350,000. Strange. Was made for $900,000 to $350,000, of which went to Kirk Douglas, its star. Thus, apart from Douglas's slice, the film was comparatively inexpensive, certainly a bargain for its distributors, United Artists. It has to date grossed $2.5 million worldwide. Kubrick is certain that genuine independence is possible only if the director stays clear of the major studios as long as possible. By this, he means that a director should have a completed script, and if possible, have a cast selected and signed before going to a major studio for money. Anything less is inviting interference and a loss of control. It must include at least one name star, and the list of possibles is quite small. Kubrick mentioned about 15 men and only 7 women. What this implies, he summarized, is that you require the means to remain independent until the script is finished, until you have a star, and until the deal is set up properly. By properly, he means that the director's control will not prove to be illusory. A system so inexorably tied to a box office list of actors and actresses obviously imposes severe limitations on a director's freedom of choice with material. But this does not distress Kubrick. There is still a large enough number of good properties to permit you to do what you want and remain independent. The only time he has ever worked with a major studio was after Paths of Glory, when, with a 40-week contract from Dor Shari, he was let loose in the MGM library of story properties. It took him a long time to find anything to interest him, but before he left, in the wake of Shari's fall from grace, he had turned Stefan Zweig's touching short story, The Burning Secret, into a screenplay. Employed by Look as a still photographer, he turned to film, making 2 shorts for RKO, before stepping up to features with 2 early burly films, which he would rather not talk about now, Fear and Desire and Killer's Kiss. But when they came out, film critics did talk about them and saw the kind of promise which, it is generally agreed, Kubrick honored in his next 2 films. The money for his first 2 came from family and friends. Without this support, which must at times have seemed like blind devotion, he might never have reached his present position. It would be hard to estimate the number of aspirants who have never solved the problem of how to raise that first $50,000. When he came to make Paths of Glory, United Artists was the only financing organization in Hollywood which would touch it, and then only after Kirk Douglas agreed to play in it. The majors might have balked. Kubrick thinks, at the thought of offending their interests in France through theater holdings, etc. But United Artists is not committed in this way, and Kubrick added, perhaps as a more realistic view of contemporary world market. In his experience, they have been very good with scripts about which there is general apathy or, as in this case, antagonism. Kubrick's 2 later films have received widespread critical attention. Almost all of it favorable. The killing's thoroughly manufactured, but the script goes out of its way to give motivation to all the central characters, and this alone would distinguish it from run-of-the-mill gunslingers if it did not anyway have considerable style and impact. It holds up well when re-seen today. Paths of Glory is in every way a more important work. Not only because it was almost 3 times as expensive, it is obviously about something. When we remember that this dramatization of an incident of military deceit in the French army of World War I has still to be shown publicly in France. What will probably be Kubrick's next film is also a war story. Okay, so, let's getting into the specifics here. I kind of just wanted to read a little bit about Yeah. I don't know, a lot of this stuff has been on my mind because, yeah, just shit with work slash my career slash my films. It's been kind of rough. Just emotionally, I guess. A lot of uncertainty. There's always uncertainty, but, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I hope that those few pages were as interesting to you as they are to me. This is being recorded on my phone, so kind of different.